Here we go.
Welcome to the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Now let's do this.
It's just two men cheating the system by actually getting paid to talk sports.
You volunteered, didn't you? We're paying you, aren't we?
Good thing they like being heard, because we don't pay them that much.
It's like people only do things because they get paid, and that's just really sad.
The first of the duo is never shy about letting you know where he stands.
Okay, hot take, but I like your confidence.
The other promises he'll grow on you with time.
It's like a new pair of underwear. At first it's constrictive, but after a while it becomes a part of you.
Together they're bringing you the best in Oklahoma State sports talk and their opinions on sports topics from around the country.
That's right. Listen up. Hey, listen up. You.
Patrick Wheeler.
Let's stomp these dudes.
And Zach Lancaster.
Everyone is stupid except me.
This is the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
That's what I'm talking about.
You ain't never heard nothing like this. Let me work, show me where the mic is. I'm on stage, black shirt and my Timbs. You know how I do it, I ain't playing with you, I've been grinding. Anybody trying to sleep on me, better do something with your eyelids.
This is the Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network, here on this Friday. We're about to get you into your weekend. You're in the right spot. Patrick Wheeler hanging out on this wonderful Friday afternoon, really beautiful Friday afternoon for November. Football Friday, high school football, at least for some teams. And then, of course, we have college football tomorrow, the NFL on Sunday. Oh, man, it's the best time of year, no doubt. Just me today. Zach not feeling well, so he got the day off. And then Levi also not feeling too good. So they were both, I think, questionable coming into this one, but on the wrong side of questionable, and we're downgraded to DNPs, and are unfortunately not going to make it. But I do have Levi's picks, so we're going to keep our NFL picks rolling later on. Now we're number 2. I've got a guest, a celebrity guest, I guess I could say, gonna do my picks with me in the second hour. In this first hour, just kind of a rundown of where we're headed. Going to look at some things Oklahoma State absolutely has to do tomorrow against Kansas State to ensure a victory. We're going to replay Ryan Black's interview that he was on with us yesterday from the Manhattan Mercury. And he gave us a lot of good stuff about Kansas State. I think there are a bunch of people over there in Manhattan that were, obviously the second Skylar Thompson went down, it was, oh boy, one of those situations where not sure if the, filling in for the quarterback is going to be as easy as it is, at some places, some universities, and definitely not the case at Kansas State. We'll talk about that and much more here. But, I like to start off the Friday show by looking at 3 things that I expect/need to see out of Oklahoma State on Saturday. And number 1 for me is I need to see no regression and no signs of, like Eamon said, I think it was Eamon that said that yesterday, a couple days ago, when he talked about, look, we can't let this one loss to Texas here beat us twice. And I thought that was a really good way to put things. You don't want that to be an opportunity for Kansas State, comes off their loss and they see OSU losing, and then all of a sudden a trap game. So you don't want any regression. What does that mean? It means Oklahoma State overall this year has, we know, played good enough up to the Texas game to stay undefeated. We went into the game against Iowa State looking for a lot more offensively than what we had seen so far in the first few matchups. And then you get up against an Iowa State team that's pretty salty all the way around, and you still get that victory, and the defense, of course, continued to play lights out, which was exactly what we wanted to see, at least on that side of the ball. Offensively, there was still a little bit left to be desired, but then coming into Texas, you see the offense, for the most part, on full display. It was just the turnovers that obviously resulted in that being overshadowed, because Spencer Sanders did have a career day, and it's going to be something that's pretty easily forgotten in the outcome of that game. It's funny because if you look up any recaps of that game or what people have written or said about it, it's, immediately the turnovers, which I completely understand. You have to dig pretty deep to find, oh, by the way, he actually did have a career day passing in that ball game. So no regression. Yeah, I didn't think there was a lot of regression at all against Texas. I just think there were a lot of little mistakes that turned out to be monumental before it was all said and done. Little things that sometimes don't turn the tide in a game, but unfortunately all packed into one game. It's going to end up doing that like it did with Texas here. So you want to see the offense continue to flow. You want to see it work through Chuba Hubbard and Tylan Wallace, which I have no doubt that will be the case against Kansas State. And just like Gaiman said, you don't want 2 straight losses resulting from that Texas loss, which it's just so easy for a team that is rolling like Oklahoma State was to dwell on things. But the senior leadership and even guys that aren't seniors that are stepping up, and then the coaching staff coming together and immediately getting into their guys, into the mentals of, look, we got to put this behind us pretty quick. Because, yes, our chances for our ultimate goal has, they've gotten a lot slimmer since the season started, but at the same time, they're still there, and we need to take care of business starting now. And the thing with Kansas State, you can come into this ball game with OSU and win, but man, it's going to look really good if you go out there and you smack them too. I mean, you go in there and you just put in a dominating performance coming off of a Texas loss. It's going to make things look a lot better before it's all said and done. And it's going to get you ready for the biggest matchup of the year, which certainly the case this year with even more implications against OU later on. So definitely that's my number one. First thing I need to see out of Oklahoma State. Number 2 is to clean it up. I mean, obviously, the turnovers, the kick return, the block punt attempt that results in a penalty, all that has to be cleaned up. And it starts with ball security. Okay, that starts with ball security. Running backs holding on to the ball, and Spencer Sanders not giving it away. Because here's the thing. Do I think that a team like Kansas State, with the offense they have right now, is going to be able to turn a bunch of turnovers into a bunch of points? Not necessarily, but you still never want to even give them that opportunity. A team like Texas, yes, they were going to do that every single time they were handed the ball. Every single time. A guy like Sam Ehlinger, who, again, for the most part was handled by that Oklahoma State defense, you give him that shorter field, they're going to find a way to punch it in. It's the same way if you look at it, what happened in overtime. You're basically given a shorter field, and it didn't take them long at all to get it in the end zone. It's just something that a senior leader in that quarterback position in that offense is going to be able to do. So you got to take care of the football. I mean, I know that has been stressed over and over this week, but at this point in the season, that's especially the case. You can't have mesh point turnovers. You cannot have interceptions that are bad interceptions. There's never people are going to be like, wait, is there a good interception? Well, think about it. There's one thing that if you were to throw a football and it goes off a receiver's hands and it's picked off, or, if it's a really good athletic play by a defensive back or a linebacker, for instance, then that's, not necessarily a bad interception. A bad interception is when you are staring guys down and you're forcing balls into really, really tight windows where very few quarterbacks are going to end up making those throws anyway. And that's kind of the thing we've seen with Spencer Sanders for the most part in these last couple of games since his return. I'd be giving him a pass if it were more of what I said the first part with the turnovers that you can kind of live with. Okay, it was a good throw, it just happened to bounce off, or it took a weird hop, whatever. But I'm not going to be able to give him a pass when it's the ones we saw on Saturday. And that's something that he's had to work on this entire week. I think if I'm, coming in and I'm Tim Urte and I'm working with Spencer Sanders, I'm telling him, look, you got to get through these progressions and use your eyes to your advantage, man. I mean, that's what I'm telling him. Look off the safeties and know where you're going to go with the ball before it's snapped. Make sure you have that in your head instead of immediately getting the snap and looking over at Tylan or whoever the entire time, and the safety's like, well, I know where that ball's going. I mean, so that's what I'm talking to Spencer Sanders about all week, is because you can get really into a quarterback's head about ball security. You don't want him at every single point he's throwing the football thinking, I hope I don't turn this over, because then guess what? He's going to turn it over. You want him to play free and loose, but at the same time, get back to what he's used to doing. Get back to what's natural for him at the quarterback position. Move out of the pocket a little bit. Don't be afraid to tuck it and run every now and again. And use your eyes to your advantage. few keys I'm giving Spencer Sanders this week. And I think that if you look at people, have asked, and I've seen a lot of people, rank the turnovers from worst to not as bad, this week. And thinking, the one where he, loses the ball because he is not aware in the pocket. That one right there, I'm not going to even blame that on lack of experience anymore. Like, that's something that just has to already be in the head of a quarterback. I don't care. That should be taught from a younger age, and it is. You got to know when the pocket's getting tight, especially around your blind side. You got to start moving pretty quickly there. So that's something that has to be tightened up as well. But as well as the other things that happened, you look at the kick return and you look at the blocked punt attempt. First of all, the kick return, we know that never should have even been there. You get a couple of guys, if you go back and look at the film, that clearly aren't in position, miss tackle, and he's gone. So that's something that it's special teams, again, at this point in the season, needs to be, not an issue. Special teams needs to be something that you don't have to think all that much about. And unfortunately, here we are having to think a lot about it. The blocked punt attempt, from the second I saw it happen, I'm thinking to myself, I don't understand why that call was put on. And I've seen some people say, if it would have been completed, if it would have been an actual block punt, nobody would be mad about it. Well, I still don't really understand it. Even if it did work out, I'm like, okay, at that point, we got to start considering where we are in this football game. And if it does go wrong, it goes really wrong like it did. So I never did understand that call, to be completely honest with you. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, you're on the Afternoon Sports Drive. What you got for me?
Hey, guys. I'm with you 100% on that try to block the punt call.
Uh-huh.
That was a big mess, and it hurt us so bad. I got to tell you, with COVID-19 and all sports getting knocked out of the world last spring, I've been not listening to sports radio as often as I used to, which was every day.
Sure.
But I'm kind of getting back in the swing. I don't know if anyone and everyone is talking about this or not, but this is the part I want to talk about that I really don't hear people talking about very much. Spencer Sanders cannot throw a good ball. These circus catches that Tylan Wallace is making do not need to be and should not be circus catches. If he could throw the ball out there and lead the man, they would be caught in stride, easy touchdown catches.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Am I wrong on that?
No, not necessarily. I think that for instance, this last game, I was pretty impressed, I'll say, with most of the touchdown throws, most of those 4. I say that because the first one, if you look back, it was in a really tight spot, and it was a bullet pass. So I give him a lot of credit on that one. Obviously, had a wide open one. And then the one to Tylan, that was really, the second one to Tylan was just a fantastic catch. But I'm with you. If you go back to look at some of Spencer's incompletions in that ball game too, and this was something I mentioned earlier this week. Yeah, he's underthrowing at times, and the accuracy is a little off too. And so that's where you go back to a mechanic side. So I'm completely in agreement that I think that Spencer has plenty to work on and had plenty to work on this week, other than just ball security. It was also, okay, we know the touchdowns were pretty good for the most part, but man, to get down the field, let's work on giving our receivers a better chance. I'm with you for sure on that.
Yeah, and it's not just Wallace. There's other guys who they get behind their defender, they're open, and then they have to turn around and slow down, and the defender runs into them, and they have a big hot mess on your hands because he's not getting the ball to him where it needs to be put, where other really good quarterbacks put the ball for their open receivers.
Right.
And the last thing, the circus catch that after a 10-minute review got overturned by the ref.
Yeah.
That poor number 17 had to make. The dude is wide open out there. That turned into a circus catch because Sanders delivers the ball to him behind him where he's wide open, and he has to twist his body around and make a circus catch out of what should have been an easy wide open reception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was
the kid's got problems with accuracy and just being a really good throwing quarterback. To tell you the truth, it reminds me a lot of J.W.
Mm-hmm.
Walsh. Dude could run like the wind, but eventually got replaced because he just was not a good thrower. And I got to tell you, the kid from Alabama that transfers to OU, was a massive running quarterback. They win a national championship. They get dang close to another, and Saban ditches him for a guy that can really throw the ball well.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially today. I mean, in today's college football world, it's no longer, and it used to be. It used to be the land of the running quarterback, where you could run first and be really successful with it. Well, defenses have caught up, and if you can't throw the football consistently, especially on third down, for instance, yeah, it's going to be a long haul for you, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that really bothers me is, and hopefully you guys can remember this from last year, this was the same story last year.
Sure.
He's got wide open guys down the field, can't get the ball to him the right way, and plus the interception. So, I mean, I would, you know how us OSU fans are. I'm sitting here hoping, okay, we've had a year to work on it. Mm-hmm. Man, oh man, I bet they've been concentrating on it. I bet they've been working. I bet he's got all that worked out. Same stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing I understand is so frustrating. There's been people that have looked at it and said, okay, well, that's why you want somebody that we've seen the argument. We want Sam Ehlinger back, or not Sam Ehlinger. I apologize. I'm looking at my sheet here. Yeah. We want Shane Illingworth back, and it's like, okay, well, I can see why. I would have loved to see, you put him up against an Iowa State or a Texas. What would he have done in some of those situations? Because, when you go back and you look at the Iowa State game, one of the interceptions, the second one that Spencer threw, that was my knock on it, it wasn't so much just in a bad location. It was that he underthrew the pass that a quarterback should be able to make in that situation pretty easily. So I'm with you. I think that the clock is ticking here for Spencer, and especially, to keep the locker room on his side, to be honest with you, to keep everybody on his side. You got to start making these plays, and you got to start making them now, especially this year when the chances are really low to kind of get where Oklahoma State wants to, but they're still there, and something's got to happen and needs to happen this week, no doubt. Well, I'm not telling anyone on earth anything they didn't see with their own eyes. I mean, we were the better team. We beat the crud out of those guys. Mm-hmm. We absolutely, totally squandered that game. And mostly for the reasons that you and I have been talking about for the last 3 or 4 minutes. So, anyway. Yeah, no. Thanks for letting me talk. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's I think the caller made some good points. I mean, and it's true. That's where we are with, as I mentioned to start off this week, is patience, especially for quarterbacks. Patience for quarterbacks is at an all-time low. And it's been that way for the past couple of years. I've noticed a trend, and it gets that way in the NFL, gets that way in college football, that if your quarterback is not playing up to par, I mean, it's next guy up at this point. Because winning it's got to happen now, and certainly in college football. It was a great point yesterday made by, I think it was Josh Sills, who talked about it. Look, you can only take one loss, and if you take one loss, that's sometimes all it takes. And next thing you know, you're knocked out of contention, and it's true. So much rides on every single down, every single play for competitive football teams like Oklahoma State this year. So I completely get that. I know there are people frustrated with that as well. The mechanics have to come back, and that's part of the lack of the mechanics right now, is part of the fact that he was out for so long. Spencer was, and trying to heal up. But I am kind of with everybody else at this point on the impatience factor, that I'm past the whole let's start making excuses because of how many games he's had under his belt. At this point, it's either you're going to become a real college football quarterback or you're not. I'm kind of running out of time with people as well. Last thing I want to hit on, my last thing I need to see from Oklahoma State. You got to get Chuba back on track. I mean, the Oklahoma State, yes, absolutely the better team against Texas last Saturday, offensively and defensively, I thought, for the most part. And Texas did a really good job of keeping Chuba at bay. I know he scored the receiving touchdown, but rushing the football, if you can keep him to a low total yardage like they did, that's a win. So Kansas State, and it was funny, I know we're going to hear it in a second when I play Ryan's audio from yesterday, but he talked about the Kansas State looking at what Texas did defensively to stop Chuba, and believes that's going to be the exact same goal for Kansas State coming into it tomorrow. So we'll see if that's the case, but getting Chuba back on track, we know last year he nearly ran for 300 on him, so they're certainly not going to at least attempt to let him beat them single-handedly. But we all know when that does happen, it's going to open things up for a guy like Tylan Wallace, and it goes right back to what the caller was talking about. If Spencer Sanders gets the mechanics working and he starts throwing the ball a little bit better, you leave a guy one-on-one like with Tylan Wallace like Texas did, it's all over from there. So that's going to lead to, tomorrow I'm going to give my ultimate prediction. I'm going to give my score on the Orange Nation game day on the tailgate show there at 10 o'clock, by the way. We're kicking it off 10 a.m. tomorrow here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network, myself and Jason Elmquist. So we'll give you predictions and scores there and more in depth. But those are the three keys that Oklahoma State has to hit on to get this victory against Kansas State tomorrow. We come back. Ryan Black joined us yesterday from the Manhattan Mercury and had a lot of good stuff to say about Kansas State. We're going to play what he had to say. Of course, later on in hour number 2, we'll get you into your NFL week. What are we? Week 9. Wow. Week 9 kicked off last night. We got picks, fantasy advice, and gambling picks coming your way as well. Also to come on the afternoon sports drive.
You can call till your voice is running out, but I can't hear you now. I can't hear you now. I'm somewhere far away where you can't bring me down, so I can't hear you now. I can't hear you now. Yeah, run it back, tell them what I'm coming at. I was on the hit there, now I'm done with that. Scared of what I didn't want, scared of what
Welcome back, afternoon sports drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network with Patrick Wheeler. So yesterday, Ryan Black came on with us from the Manhattan Mercury and talked to Zach and myself. He's a beat writer there for Kansas State, and he's seen the ups and downs that K-State has dealt with this season. Obviously, it was about as bad of a start as you could ask for a team. Kansas State decided to lose to Arkansas State to kick off the season, but then got back on the track, the right track, winning-wise, and then unfortunately, Skylar Thompson decided to hop off the track. And that's actually where everything kind of falls apart. I mean, Will Howard's we saw what he did against a West Virginia defense that's good, but not as good as Oklahoma State, and he was really bad. That tells you anything. So there was, I think, some lack of confidence, and still is, amongst Kansas State fans. Well, we're going to hear what Ryan had to say to us yesterday. A lot of good stuff, so here's Ryan Black. Ryan Black for the Manhattan Mercury joining us. We appreciate you taking some time out here. And Kansas State, they've been an interesting team, obviously, coming into this year. But before we dive into more of what they've been able to accomplish and not accomplish this season, coming into this season with COVID and all that nonsense going on in the offseason with teams, what were your expectations for Kansas State coming into this season?
I would tell you that I kind of felt like, and maybe this sounds like a little bit of a cop-out answer, but I felt like K-State could really go either way, meaning that they could either really surprise people, which it seems like they usually end up doing, right? There's a reason they seem to get picked 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, seemingly every year, and then end up usually outperforming expectations. And I thought that because of the fact that, hey, they brought back one of the most experienced players, not just in the conference, but in the country, in Skylar Thompson. Now, of course, he's gone for the season, so, that kind of cancels out. But the reason I thought, maybe they will, underachieve, relative to what they wanted to do this year is because, they lost a lot from last year's team, especially on the offensive line. They literally were replacing all 5 starters. You throw in the fact they lost their top rushers from last year in Jordan Brown and James Gilbert. They lost their kind of most consistent receiver in Dalton Schoen. They lost multiple guys up front on defense with Trey Deshawn and Jordan Mitty, as well as Reggie Walker. They were replacing a lot from last year's team, which certainly far exceeded expectations in terms of they were preseason picked 9th to finish ahead of only KU, and they ended up in that however many was 4-way tie for second, in the conference, for third, my apologies, in the conference last year. And so, the fact that they were, they're 4-2 through 6 games, I would tell you that pretty much anyone who considers himself a K-State fan would take that.
Yeah, it's been a tale of 2 different Kansas State teams, I think, this year, too, because we obviously, you open the season, they lose to Arkansas State, and everyone's like, okay, didn't see that one coming, and then, 4 wins, and including taking down Oklahoma, right? So it's kind of been that tale of 2 teams with Kansas State.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is that certainly after they lose to Arkansas State, I personally would not have believed that they would be 4-2 through this point, because I guess it's like it is one of those things where again you assume that, well, hey, if they can't even beat Arkansas State, a Sun Belt team, how in the world are they going to beat Oklahoma or Texas Tech or West Virginia, right? But the fact that they immediately rebounded and had that just amazing come-from-behind win at Oklahoma where they overcame a 21-point deficit 2 different times in that game, I think really set this team on a positive path. And I think the even more personally, to me, impressive thing is the fact that now these last few games they've done it without Skylar Thompson. He got hurt in the first half of the game against Texas Tech. And we come to find out, like following week, that now he's gone for the season. Mm-hmm. And Will Howard, a true freshman, has stepped in and played overall, I'd say fairly well. Certainly a lot. I mean, I think well for a player who was not expected to have to play this season. You have a 5th-year senior in Skylar Thompson. Knock on wood, outside of injuries, you expect that he's going to be the guy that they count on, but. The thing about Will Howard is we're going to see how resilient he is now this weekend, because he's coming off his first game where he was not rock solid. He threw 3 interceptions against West Virginia, one of which was a return for a touchdown, and K-State just got blasted last week, 37-10. So, we're going to see what this kid's made of come Saturday.
Ryan Black joining us here on the Afternoon Sports Drive from the Manhattan Mercury on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. And yeah, you've mentioned there with Will Howard, and when you guys knew that he was going to step in at quarterback, be completely honest with me here. How confident were you that, okay, this K-State team, even with him at the helm, can still really compete in the Big 12?
Well, I'll tell you that the first game without him, I picked TCU to win. So I guess I should probably give you your answer, right? I mean, I just felt like, hey, they probably would still, beat KU, because, I mean, that's almost a given, right? And I thought, okay, they probably win, 2 more games. Maybe they'd win a game people don't expect, and then they probably would beat Baylor. But like I said, outside of that, no, I don't. And here's the thing: is I just don't think that given that this time last year, this kid's still playing high school football in Pennsylvania. I don't think it anybody outside of him, and of course that whole cliche about the guys in this locker room. I don't think anybody really reasonably expected that that he would have been undefeated as a starter heading into last week's game against West Virginia, and that and that defense just is so good. They did make him look like a true freshman last week.
Hey Ryan, Zach Lancaster here, co-host. We've seen what Will Clark can do, Will Howard can do over the past few weeks. He gets thrust into a situation against Texas Tech. They find a way to win. Kansas State finds a way to win against TCU, and like you said, Kansas is a given year in and year out. But then you see what they did against a really good defense in West Virginia. You look at this Oklahoma State defense, and this OSU defense has been really good all year long. I think the biggest question was, well, what's this defense going to do when they get tested, when they go up against an Iowa State or they go up against a Texas? And they held a really good Iowa State team to 21 points. And I understand that Texas scored 41 points, but a lot of those were off of turnovers. You had the 100-yard kickoff return. Oklahoma State held Texas to under 300 yards total offense, and I think it was 13 first downs. How confident are you that Howard is going to be able to do something to be able to move the ball against Oklahoma State on Saturday?
Not supremely confident, mainly because today, earlier, before this interview, we spoke with offense coordinator Courtney Messingham, and he did not seem too confident that Briley Moore is going to play Saturday. He said that Moore would be a game time decision. We know Moore got hurt in the second quarter of last week's loss, and he's K-State's kind of stellar tight end. He's been their leader in touchdown catches. He's also their leader in receptions this year, and he's just been kind of the guy who, when K-State gets down the red zone, he's the guy they look for. So then, if you take him out of the equation, that's one less dependable option that Howard has. And with Moore gone for the second half of last week's game, it made it even tougher on true freshman Deuce Vaughn, who West Virginia also shut down. So I just feel like the fact that K-State has not really been able to consistently string together drives and really develop any playmakers outside of Deuce Moore and Briley Moore and Deuce Vaughn, I just think that, it's going to be extremely, extremely tough for this offense Saturday. And I really think that, K-State's only legitimate shot to win is if they do what they did against TCU and what they did against KU, which is, making plays on special teams and maybe returning a pass for a touchdown. Because I just don't think right now this offense has shown that they can do what they need to do to dominate time possession and keep other teams' offenses off the field.
Yeah, you lead me right into my next question. Kansas State historically has been really, really good with special teams. And as we all know at this point, the two special team gaffes that Oklahoma State had last week against Texas, the roughing the kicker, and then obviously the 100-yard kickoff return, those really came back to bite Oklahoma State in the butt. What can Kansas State do special teams wide to try to make an impact on the game? Because as you mentioned, the offense is going to struggle. So how big of an impact can special teams have if Kansas State can get something going?
I mean, I think again that's one of the keys to a potential K-State upset is they've got to make plays on special teams. I think everyone kind of knows now about what Phillip Brooks did against KU, returning two punts for touchdowns and also just having multiple 40-yard returns, which he's had a K-State single-game record for punt return yardage in that lopsided 55-14 win. But I think the other thing, which in a way has been kind of forgotten because he did so little before he decided to transfer, is K-State lost an All-American kick returner in Joshua Youngblood, who just decided in the middle of the year that, hey, I'm going to enter the transfer portal and I'm done. But last week, Malik Knowles, who last year returned a kickoff against Mississippi State for a touchdown, he had a 46-yard return on a kickoff. So, K-State has talent, in the special teams, even having lost an All-American guy like Youngblood. But I just think the fact that, Knowles has not been as consistently good and consistently excellent as what Youngblood was last year. So I just really think that if they can't get Oklahoma State to punt the ball, I just don't know how much else they're going to be able to do on special teams.
Ryan Black joining us here on the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. And more on, Ryan, I want to get your opinion on what you think the defensive focus is going to be overall for Kansas State, because we saw what Texas did against the Cowboys when really it was, okay, we're going to load up the box a bit, put an extra guy in there and bottle up Chuba Hubbard. And unfortunately, that's going to leave one guy on Tylan Wallace, but we'll take our chances with him. So do you see K-State trying to adopt a little bit more of that?
Yes. Yeah, mainly because I just think that so many of the players who are still on this team from last year remember the fact that he ran for 296 yards. Yeah. And I think they're just going to go into it with maybe we're going to get beaten this game, but we're not going to let Hubbard run all over us like he did last year, and that's partially a pride thing, but I think it's also, like you said, just alluding to the fact that that's kind of what Texas decided to do. And K-State had a lot of confidence, in their cornerbacks. Justin Gardner and Echo Boydo. I mean, they've had some players who played really well at corner this year, I just think they're, like you said, they're going to be willing to maybe take their chances one-on-one with Wallace. Now, is that playing with fire? Yes, certainly it is, but I just think that it completely based off last year, they are going to load the box and just say we're not going to let Hubbard have another crazy game.
Last thing for you here real quick, but you mentioned Deuce Vaughn and the rushing attack, and even at this point in the season, is it still, and maybe with Will Howard now at quarterback, is it still more of an emphasis, you think, for Kansas State to really try and get their own run game working here a little bit?
Oh, yes, and that's what the coaching staff would tell you, even if even in just regular kind of games, their focus always, just this coaching staff's focus, is always to establish the run. Yeah. That they are a run to set up the pass kind of team. So I think it certainly takes on an added importance given the fact that you've got a guy in Howard who's only going to be making his seventh career appearance as a college player. And so I think you always want to try to take pressure off him where you can. But like I said, that's not going to change K-State's, game plan week to week is always to establish the run. That's just something that a philosophy that this coaching staff brought from North Dakota State that they certainly, did very well last year. And this year they're kind of struggling a little more to this point to find that. But, hey, there's still 4 games left in the regular season. We're going to see if maybe it comes together here in the final quarter and closing stretch.
Yeah, no doubt. That's Ryan Black from the Manhattan Mercury. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan A. Black. Ryan, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day and joining us here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. We appreciate it. Have a good one, man.
Yes, sir. Hey, thanks for having me on.
All right, Ryan Black, everybody. There you go, Ryan Black from yesterday. He had a lot to say there, a lot of good stuff about Kansas State and what their approach is going to be. And that last part is pretty interesting where he talks about, Deuce Vaughn and then the running game. Kansas State still wants to be a run-first team and still wants to establish that, certainly with the quarterback, a true freshman. And that's the problem when you run into a team like Oklahoma State who is not really going to let you run the football on them all that much defensively. I just think that overall Oklahoma State does not really have to dig too deep here. I really, truly believe that. They play like they did for the most part against Texas, minus the turnovers, and this game won't be close against Kansas State. So they got to stop the run game, which I believe they will. And then you hear, Ryan talking about, well, we're trying to adopt that same mindset defensively that Texas did. But the difference here is that if you do that and you do load up the box and you put single coverage on Tylan Wallace, okay, that's fine. And like you said, yeah, you are playing with some fire, but you just can't allow Tylan Wallace to get 11 catches and 2 touchdowns. That's the problem. If you could go one-on-one and like he mentioned, they're confident in their cornerbacks, but come on. This is Tylan Wallace, and he's next level. I don't think there's going to be a cornerback in the nation that is necessarily going to have a great day covering him. So you definitely do take your chances when you do that. That's why I expect another big day from Tylan Wallace here, because you want to try to limit him with catches, but that's much easier said than done, as we've known for quite a while now and got to see on full display Saturday against the Longhorns. When we come back here on the Afternoon Sports Drive, the Packers dominated last night. It wasn't even close. And what does this tell you about Aaron Rodgers? I'm going to tell you that next to round out the first hour. In hour number 2, we have the NFL Week 9 picks coming your way, Levi's and myself. I'll have a guest picker joining me too. I'll give you gambling advice as well as fantasy advice to round out your Friday and get you into your weekend. All coming up on the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Whoa. Staring as I go, I gave until my soul hurt, never told them so. They're watching as I fall, somewhere down below. Maybe I'm just falling to get somewhere.
Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio. Rodger Wheeler hanging out on this Friday. Getting you into your weekend. All the sports knowledge you need. Getting dropped right here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network, wrapping up this first hour. So last night, the Packers went in on Thursday Night Football against a Niners team that was just laughably undermanned. I mean, the list of injuries, oh my goodness. And then they mixed in with some COVID issues, and there was just, offensively, there was just nobody. Every single time a guy caught a pass from Nick Mullins, you were like, who? Who was that? And it was really that way through the entire game. Other than one of their running backs who had a really good game receiving and most of it coming in garbage time, that was about it. But if you go down the list of guys that started this season that are out right now for the Niners, you wouldn't wish that on anybody, defensively and offensively. So, and that starts obviously with Jimmy Garoppolo, which he's not a difference maker by any means, but he's certainly better than Nick Mullins. George Kittle when he's not in, that's just the whole offense changes because it runs through him. It's one of the rare times an offense runs through a tight end, but the Niners really do. The receivers were all either on COVID list or hurt, and then the running backs were all hurt. So it was pretty much just fair game for Aaron Rodgers and company to show up and basically blast the Niners out of the building, which they did. Aaron Rodgers finishes with 305 yards, 4 touchdowns, and it was really that easy. He was 25 of 31 throwing. I mean, this was like he probably was half asleep while he was making some of these throws. But Aaron Rodgers, he's just bounced back in the right way. And it's not like he was coming off a really disappointing season, but the stats he did put up mixed in with everything going on in the offseason, which I still think, I don't care what anybody says. Now, you can come on here and people can say, Jordan Love, it makes sense if you look down the road. No. They should have gotten Aaron Rodgers a receiver. We all know that. And they screwed him by not doing that to me. I mean, I thought they put him in a really bad position. But he is so good at being a professional quarterback that he's going to make plays and make things happen all the time, even at his age. And it's just incredible to see. You know, last night, he can't stop hitting Davante Adams. And some people want, he should spread it around a little more. Davante Adams is open almost every single route he runs. The dude is just playing at another level at receiver. So that helps. And could you imagine if the Packers actually had a solid number 2? If they had a solid number 2 receiver? Man, they'd be really tough to stop offensively. Now, defensively, they've got some holes, man. That's no doubt. And that may be what ultimately keeps them from beating the best teams in the league. They have no problem beating bad teams and beating average teams. But like we saw when the Bucs came in, it was a completely different ballgame. You know, with Jair Alexander out, that doesn't help. But the Packers defense has to tighten up. If that's the case, that's all they need is just a little bit better effort on that side of the ball, and Aaron Rodgers will take care of the rest. But man, he is just so dominant. You can watch him any game and find something new. If I were talking to a young quarterback and I wanted to put on film of a guy and say, here's what you need to replicate, I would show him Aaron Rodgers film all the time. All the time. But there are some plays, obviously, that he's just going to make that a lot of quarterbacks aren't. But other than that, he is so sound. And then, of course, like I mentioned with Davante Adams, best route runner in the game. I think right now, amongst active receivers in the NFL, he is the best receiver in the NFL. He even said that last night, and of course it blew up. Oh my gosh, Davante said he's the best, and then Julio Jones said he was the best, and then of course DeAndre Hopkins had to hop on that and posted a laughing face, or posted the comment, haha. Always love that when receivers go back and forth, and it's certainly debatable. We've had this debate before on this show of who the best receivers in the game are, but to me it's hard to argue with Davante Adams not being the best in the NFL at this moment. I think DeAndre Hopkins is right on the doorstep, and Julio Jones is right on his doorstep. They're really, really close. But man, the consistency that Davante Adams has shown when he is healthy, my goodness. And he was underrated coming into it. Coming into this season, last season, don't get me wrong, he was underrated. People would leave him off the list where he should have been way up there, and this was a proving season for him. And my goodness, is Aaron Rodgers happy that he's back. Because they don't have a legitimate number 2. If you watch that game last night, Marquez Valdez-Scantling catches 2 touchdowns. Should have had another one. He drops it. His hands are terrible. The dude has bricks for hands. There's not a legitimate number 2 receiver with Green Bay, but Aaron Rodgers is one of those rare quarterbacks that's so good, it doesn't even matter. You can throw spare parts out there with Davante Adams, and he's going to get you wins. I think this is a Packers team you have to keep an eye on the rest of the season. And don't be surprised if come NFC Championship time, they're there. They were last year, and they should have won that game. The Niners obviously won't be an issue, as we saw. But man, if it's the Bucs, think about that. How about the Bucs and the Packers for the NFC Championship game? Whoa, man, that would be a fun one. That's going to be my guess at this point. That's going to be my prediction. When we come back in hour number 2, get into some Week 9 NFL picks, gambling advice, fantasy advice, all kinds of good stuff to get you into your weekend here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Triple Play Sports Radio Network with Patrick Wheeler. We're back after this.
I don't wanna wait for our life to be over. You have it, but you take it how you left it.
Welcome in hour number 2 of the afternoon sports drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler here on this Friday. So we get ready to get into our Week 9 NFL picks. Right now on the board, I lead Levi by 1 game. 77-76 is my lead through 8 weeks. It has been neck and neck. We're still debating on when Zach, since he's now a part of the show, when he comes back, if we're going to let him into the picks. I think we're going to. So that's down the road, though. And then today, since Levi couldn't make it in and Zach's out sick, I had to get a celebrity guest to come on and help me with these picks. But before, he already has his own intro, so we'll get that out of the way and then bring him in.
Uh-oh! Someone had some daddy issues. Nothing could be my father from the truth. Who? You said my father. No, I didn't. How? Did not. Shabba! For me, this is a dad issue. Dad issue! Dad! Deadbeat dad! Oh. Daddy didn't love me!
That means Rodger Wheeler's joining us, and he's going to be my celebrity guest picker. Dad, what's going on?
Hey, it's good to be back with you, bud. What's going on this week?
Well, so far so good with around here in Stillwater because Oklahoma State's good to go for tomorrow. They play Kansas State, and I think everybody is sort of at this point maybe ready to let the loss against Texas go and move on to Kansas State because I know you watched that game too. That was a tough one, obviously.
Yeah, game in and game out, it's just so odd that you never know exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah, they came in and it was turnovers. I mean, a lot of weird things. And it's interesting in that game because I wanted to ask you, when's the last time you've ever seen a football game of any kind where, you had a 4-turnover game, a kick return allowed for a touchdown, and then an attempted block punt that resulted in a game-changing penalty? Have you ever seen a game like that?
I've never seen that many things happen in one setup, that's for sure. And then, you talk about lining things up perfectly in a row or imperfectly, that was it.
Yeah, it was Murphy's Law at that point, unfortunately. But, yeah, looking forward to that game tomorrow. That'll kick off again at 3 o'clock on Fox. So the NFL Week 9 kicked off last night. Packers won 34-17. That score is actually not quite as dominant, really, as it actually was in that ball game. In garbage time, they allowed the backup quarterback to come in for Green Bay, which we knew that was probably going to be the case. But I don't know about you. It's been a while since I've seen an NFL team like the 49ers, for instance, run into so many injuries as they have, as well as COVID on top of that, right?
Yeah, when you go through the list of what we would call the skill positions, and literally all those guys that we saw in the Super Bowl, not a single one of them playing in that game last night. You just didn't think they had much of a chance. And I listened to Troy Aikman in the pregame show talk about, hey, this is going to be a better game than you think, and I thought it was pretty good that he got roasted before that was over.
Why would he even say that? I mean, it's not even the time for a hot take. It's just let's go ahead and accept this beatdown that's about to happen.
Yeah, it's as if you were simply trying to keep that audience, keep the West Coast audience involved even early on, because I don't think anybody thought that was going to be a game.
So when he said that, Fox Sports was like, "Yeah, that's way to go, Troy. Actually, that was a good move." Is that what they said?
Yeah, basically, Joe Buck kind of let him know, I don't know that our intro made a whole lot of sense anymore. Yeah,
yeah, no doubt. Yeah, and coming out of that game, they asked Davante Adams basically, hey, about your performance and all this, and of course, they think you're the best wide receiver in the league, and he goes, well, yeah, I think I'm the best wide receiver in the league. And then there's been some flare up today because Julio Jones also believes he's the best wide receiver in the league. And then on top of that, DeAndre Hopkins hopped on the comment thread and just dropped a simple ha-ha to that. So the question has to be asked now for you, because I think at this point, Davante Adams currently is the best wide receiver in the league. He's just been so dominant now for 2 straight years, even through injuries, and so consistent. But is he your top guy, or who's your top receiver active right now in the NFL?
Well, have you ever heard any wide receivers say they weren't the best? I don't care if they're 3rd or 4th on their depth chart.
Right.
They're still the best. That's what a wide receiver is going to say.
Well,
but
Odell Beckham Jr. still thinks he's the best, so.
Well, exactly. That's what I mean. I'm going to believe that Jerry Rice still thinks he's the best. But if you look at, to answer your question, if you look at it, I'm going to put him right up there with a DeAndre Hopkins, to be honest, and mainly that's because some of the other guys, Julio Jones has got Calvin Ridley, and so you look at ones who are definite number ones on their team and who maybe are even the number two on their team, and that is definitely a Devontae Adams. I know Larry Fitzgerald is Larry Fitzgerald, and he's great and had a great career, but he's really not. To me, DeAndre Hopkins is number one and number two for the Arizona Cardinals. So
Agreed.
I would put him right there with it. He's got the best hands in the league, and so I'm going to put him right beside Devontae. I think he has a right to put up a ha-ha if he wants to on Twitter.
Right beside, so does that mean he's in front or behind Devontae? Like, who's your number one?
You're going to make me go all the way out on a limb.
I need a definitive answer.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna go with Hopkins because I do believe that he has the better skill set than Devontae Adams. And that's hard to say because Devontae deserves everything he gets. But I think without Hopkins, your team is hurt. Without Adams, you can always replace that, and I don't think you can replace DeAndre Hopkins.
I don't think you can replace Devontae Adams. We saw last year they tried, and then that's the thing. The Packers don't have a real number two at receiver. It's just that the way you try to replace him is with Aaron Rodgers being as good as he is. And unfortunately for him, he doesn't have a second receiver he can reliably throw to, especially with Allen Lazard out. So I just don't know if you can replace him with the production he's given. But I don't have any issue with you picking DeAndre Hopkins because his hands are next level. I think he has the best hands in the game. I give the edge route running just barely to Devontae Adams, but they're both kind of 1A, 1 right there to me. So I'm completely with you on that. But let's get ahead to our Week 9 picks. As you heard in the intro, I'm leading by 1 against Levi. It's been that tight. And did I tell you? I'm sure you've heard this too, but did I tell you what our prize at the end of this contest is?
I think it has something to do with wearing a jersey or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. We get the loser has to pay for the winner's jersey of his choice. He gets to choose an NFL jersey, any team, any player. So it's one that I'm really trying to win because I don't want to be out that cash. So,
but I believe if you and I had this conversation about a month ago or so, and you were talking about a possible, if you won, you were going to choose a Patriots jersey. Is that right?
I said no. Okay, we were mentioning what players we would like to have jersey-wise that weren't on our favorite teams. And that's where I brought up with the Patriots. I would be inclined someday to get my own Julian Edelman jersey, but I also made it clear that I would not probably ever wear it out in public because I couldn't handle all the hate I would get out in public.
So you've gone against that now, is what you're saying?
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I still want it, but I'll put it on the back burner, okay? Because there's some Chiefs I might want before that.
All right, that sounds better. That sounds more like my son right there.
Yeah, for sure. Let's look at our first pick of the day. Tomorrow, the Texans and the Jags. Uh-oh. It's back to lead-off toilet bowl here. Texans and the Jags. The Jaguars, it's so funny because they started the season off with that win. Everyone was like, oh, yeah, Minshew Mania's back. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get to see him actually come in and play a full season. Maybe he's good. No. And now he's not even going to play. I think he's still hurt. The Texans come in, and I think they're an interesting story, right, because Bill O'Brien's gone, and Deshaun Watson is starting to play a little bit better. There were talks of Will Fuller getting shipped off to Green Bay, but that didn't happen. So Texans and the Jags, what do you like in this one?
Well, like you said, the Jags may be exactly what we thought they were going to be at this point. The Texans, not so much, but 2-1 6 teams going at it. I mean, what a horrible matchup. I hope that's not in prime time. I'm going to definitely have to go with the Texans in this one, and for the reasons you said. I think Deshaun Watson has some things to prove, and it's about time to turn this team around a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, too. I think we have a caller. Let's see if we do. Caller on the Afternoon Sports Drive. What you got with Patrick Wheeler, Rodger Wheeler? What's going on?
Okay, so I'm going to keep this very short this week. Last week I called with 2 games.
Uh-huh.
This is like my 3rd or 4th week in a row to call you because this is like my favorite segment all week. When you guys do this.
Appreciate it.
But I said that if you recall, I said if this Vegas game against Cleveland had been the week after Vegas went to Kansas City and won, they would not be a 2.5-point dog. And then you convinced me that it was still a pretty shaky bet, and I agreed. I mean, and I still agree. It was pretty shaky, but as it turned out, Vegas did not only cover the spread, but they won the game outright.
Yes, they did.
But if you recall, I said if there was one game I would bet on. Now, I understand why you were down on Phillip Rivers, because I certainly can't blame anybody for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I said if there was one game I were to drop cash on, it would be on Indy after their bye week, coming in fresh to take on Detroit. I just felt like maybe it was enough to get Rivers right, and he actually did play well, but that turned out to be, and I guess I am tooting my own horn on that.
No, you hit that one on the head. I remember I was watching that game and I thought to myself, I think I had a conversation about that with the bet, because there was a game earlier. It was actually a good game for the first half or so, and then the Colts pulled away, and I was like, well, Lions will be Lions, I guess.
Yeah, but anyway, it was, and the reason why I mentioned the Vegas game was because that was the stat to me that stood out. Was if this had been a week earlier after they beat Kansas City, they would not be a 2.5-point dog. I think Vegas wins that game, because I still think now I'm really believing even more and more that they're an underrated football team. All that to being said, no stat has stood out to me just off the top of my head this week. So I'm calling to brag about last week, but this week I'm sorry I don't have anything. I'll listen to you guys and get your takes.
Hey, we appreciate it. No, that's good stuff. I think it's actually funny because I was watching that game, and I'm sure, Dad, you heard me last week. I looked into it, I was like, well, the Colts coming in, Phillip Rivers has just been so disappointing this year. I don't think anybody really thought he was going to be a huge factor, but I had no confidence in them. The Lions offensively has shown promise, and Kenny Golladay was back, so I was like, yeah, it's gonna be a Lions win. It looked okay in the first half, and then it was dumped on in the second half. So, but yeah, I think it's a good bring up there, because I want you've seen plenty of Phillip Rivers over the years, and I know you're not a huge fan, but was there a reason to be excited about him going on to a new team for Colts fans, you think, this year?
I think the Colts were just desperate, in my opinion, for a quarterback, and this was an opportunity to get one that had some success over a long career. But no, I never expected him to go out there and turn a program around. They needed to go, somewhere into the draft to cultivate that, and not to an elderly dad that doesn't need to be playing football anymore.
Yeah, he's got 9 kids. I mean, so he's definitely busy. Probably should result to being a dad full time, no doubt. He did play better last week, I'll give him that. But okay, so back where we were, first pick, we all went Texans, understandably so. And I just think it's, Bill O'Brien came into that organization, and you and I were in the same area, same place, same time when we found out the D-Hop news, and it was just like, really? But the thing I want to ask you about that is, when Deshaun Watson ultimately signed his extension this offseason with the Texans, did you think that was a good move? Because I thought it was. I didn't like it at all, to be honest with you. I don't think that they have the ability to build around him like they had hoped. They showed that in their competence with Bill O'Brien. Now, maybe they find a way with a new head coach down the line, but I just didn't think that was the organization I could see Deshaun Watson excelling with and getting to a Super Bowl with.
So are you saying that he made a mistake, or the organization made a mistake?
I'm saying he made a mistake. I don't. If I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm not signing. 4 years with the Texans?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that if he had opportunities to be somewhere else in a different system that could build around him, that would have been a better move. So yeah, to me, the organization did what they needed to do to keep him, because no, I don't think they should have got rid of him, but I think he should have probably bolted, yes.
Yeah, no, the Texans were thrilled, no doubt. But Deshaun Watson, I don't know if that's the right way to go. I guess we're not getting too much better here with the quality of game, but the Giants and the Washington football team will square off in what has been such a fun NFC East division this year. Giants and Washington football team. It's in Washington. The best part about their whole team this season was when Alex Smith was able to get back out on the field. That's the only good part about their season. I guess Chase Young could be a runner-up, but other than that, it's been another down year. Giants the same way. I mean, they lose Saquon Barkley, and it's basically been down ever since. I know they got somewhat close, actually, against the Bucs, believe it or not, but I throw that up to, weird things happen in the NFL. So Giants and Washington here. Who do you like?
Well, you're talking about two teams that combined have 3 wins on the season and 12 losses. So, but
Nice.
The interesting part about that is both of them are still alive in the playoff hunt.
Unbelievably ridiculous that that's the case. I mean, the NFL, they got to switch up this playoff situation scenario they have, right? I feel like the NFC East has shown they need to restructure that.
But you can't. That's a whole other show because you can't restructure that unless you're going to do away with divisions and just do one AFC, one NFC, and that's it. And as long as you're going to have divisions, the division winner has got to be in the playoffs, and that's what's going to happen. Is one of these 4 teams is going to get there. To answer your question, I'm going with the Giants in this one because I think it comes down to quarterback play. And I think when you look at the 2 quarterbacks there, Daniel Jones has the edge to me, and I think they're going to pull that win. I guess if you want to call that an upset, I don't know if that's fair.
It's not. Trust me, it's not. I'm also with you, by the way, on that with the Giants. I was looking back and forth with this game, and Daniel Jones is yes, he's better than I'm losing the guys, Kyle Allen. He's better than Kyle Allen, and that's saying a lot because Daniel Jones is not that good. However, we have seen at times there's been plays where it's like, okay, there is some promise there, but will we ever fully see that? I seriously doubt it. So I'm going with the Giants too. I think it's going to be a really, really bad game, but the Giants are going to win it. Ravens-Colts. Baltimore, as you know, I have been down on, especially coming in this year, because defenses have started to figure Lamar Jackson out. He hasn't been that great coming off his MVP season. He's certainly not the best player in the NFL as voted by the players for whatever reason. They come into a Colts team who just got the win, as we mentioned there, with Detroit and Phillip Rivers and company. It's not going to be him that gets this win. I'll tell you right now, I'm picking the Colts. It's not going to be him that gets this win. It's the defense, because we saw the Steelers were able to really rattle Lamar Jackson. He turned it over 4 times against Pittsburgh last week. Would have had a 5th turnover had he not fallen on that other fumble. So I think this defense is good enough because they're going to force Lamar Jackson to throw the football. And again, here we are in year, what is this now, 3 with him, that he's still not comfortable throwing the football that much.
This is a game that you're terribly wrong. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to get that one wrong. Don't put any money on that because the Colts are going down to the Ravens in this one. You got 2-5-2 teams going at it. You got the number 1 rush in the Ravens against the Colts' number 1 D, but they're not any good against the run. They have a lot of trouble with the run. So you're going to see a lot of the running backs. You're going to see a lot of Lamar Jackson. I'm going to predict that he scores at least 1, if not 2, rushing touchdowns. I think he's going to set himself straight in this one. I'm not sure this one will even be a game, but this is a great matchup of 2-5-2 teams.
I think the Colts are just good enough defensively. I just not bought into Lamar Jackson. He hasn't done anything to show me. And here's the thing, too. We know if the Indianapolis Colts can come out and get a lead early, well, he doesn't play well when he's down. So I don't know. There's too many factors here. Maybe part of me just like, I really want the Ravens to lose, but I'm thinking about it too. I think the Colts have a legitimate shot. If they do get blasted, though, I'll make sure and let you know that you were right, because I know you'll want to know that.
Well, I'll bring it up to you.
Well,
so
yeah,
you might as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Lions, Vikings. Detroit has Matthew Stafford on the COVID-19 list, so I'm not even sure, to be honest. Is Jeff Driscoll? No, he went somewhere else. I don't know who their backup quarterback is, to be completely honest with you. This is a Vikings team that did just beat the Packers, believe it or not. They found a way to get that win. Dalvin Cook basically did it himself. He came back and scored 4 touchdowns, which is like unheard of. It's in Minnesota. But if there's no Matt Stafford, I think the Lions have a tough time, even against the shoddy Vikings defense. So I'm going to go Minnesota at home here.
Yeah, I had to agree with you on that one. I originally, when I started putting these together, I thought the Lions was a better team, and then Matthew Stafford shows up on the COVID list. I'm like, man, I'm like you. I don't even know who the backup is for Detroit, and if your number one is Matt Stafford and he's not there, you're in a lot of trouble against a team like the Vikings. I think Dalvin Cook will repeat exactly what he did last week. I think you'll see it again. And once they get the lead, I think you'll see more and more of him. And this one shouldn't even be close.
You know who I'm just now looking up? That is the backup quarterback for the Lions. Good old Chase Daniel.
There you go. Now, Can we change our pick now that now we know Chase?
Yeah, he's going to get the win, you say. Okay. Yeah, no.
I'm still not going to say that, no, but I won't go there, but I that's interesting. That makes me want to turn the channel over there for a little bit.
Right, yeah, just to see the good old Mizzou boy, Chase Daniel, and he's been your journeyman. He's been the classic, made a lot of money doing very little in the NFL. No doubt.
Hey, that's a philosophy of life that I don't disagree with. If you can make as much money as you can and do as little work as possible, hey, go for it.
Yeah, that's right. He's been able to exploit that. Last couple of picks, by the way, Levi's also got the Colts. And in the Lions game, he went Lions, believe it or not. I'm not sure if he knows Matt Stafford is on the COVID-19 list, but I'm not going to tell him. So if he's listening, sorry, Levi, too late.
Right.
Yeah, it's too late. Bears and Titans. This is somewhat of an interesting matchup, actually, because the Bears' defense is actually playing really well. So you get this defense against, Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill coming in, who we know that can be a high-powered offense for Tennessee. Had a couple of tough weeks here recently, but the first thing I want to ask you about this game, though, with the Bears, is it time for them to consider going back to Mitch Trubisky? Because, Nick Foles, he's just not getting it done.
Well, I thought it was funny during the week that started to be the conversation. If Trubisky is healthy, then I don't think they should make it. Everybody wants to don't have to, and so they got Foles, but he's proving that he is the guy that's brought in an emergency situation. So I give him the rock start. I know that it should be Trubisky. The thing with the Bears, to me, they're doing this whole thing, this 5-3 far most. They haven't continue to get them home. They want defense. But it's the ninth best defense overall in the league. Each side is talking about taking on Derrick Henry. I'm going to side with Derrick Henry.
Okay, yeah, you broke up a little bit there, but I think I heard you say you're going to side with Derrick Henry in this one, which it's just you're putting two immovable objects, against each other. A really tough Bears defense and Derrick Henry, who is also very hard to stop. But I think, I'll say this, the Titans are going to get the win, but I do not project a really big day for Derrick Henry. I think he's going to be running into a lot of walls. He might actually go touchdownless in this game too. But, Nick Foles is just... I've really backed him up for a long time. I've tried to, and there's been, things I've pointed to that have been really good that he's done so far in the league, but he is proving this year that it was really nothing more than a fairy tale backup season to Carson Wentz and getting that Super Bowl win over Tom Brady, and I think that's unfortunately going to define his career before it's all said and done. Would you agree with that?
I think he might do it again. I think there's, I don't think his career is over, and that fairy tale you're talking about could happen again, whether it be, in this season, next season, whenever it is. But I don't think he belongs as the starting QB for anybody.
Okay, so you broke up when you talked about the quarterbacks earlier. Did you go with Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky? Who should be out there right now?
I think it should be Trubisky. I would really believe, that he's the guy that you need to have. Under center, he's a North Carolina grad. How can we go against him? But when you see what Foles can do in an emergency situation compared to what he can do from the starting gate, you got to go with the guy that you drafted for that, and that's Trubisky.
Well, and to think that the Bears could have all their problems solved because they could have taken Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes, but instead they're sitting.
You bring that up to Chicago people. That's not really nice at all.
They're sitting there just deciding between Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles. So that's they made their own bet on that situation. I think that also the Titans, they've become a really interesting team the last couple of years, because if you remember back in I bet 2018 or so, they were still really bad. And they flipped the switch last year finally when Ryan Tannehill took over, and since then they've been a really competitive ball club. But isn't it crazy to see what happens when a guy like Ryan Tannehill is released from Adam Gase's clutches and he gets into an offense that actually knows how to use them?
Yeah, that we can say that about so many different people, and how much better they've been with different leadership compared to what they might have currently. It's a fact. I mean, different quarterbacks are better with different systems, and until you find the right match, you kind of stumble around like this.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we're going to come back here in just a minute, finish up our picks, look at some fantasy advice, gambling picks coming up as well. Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Feel like I'm gonna puke, cause my taxes are due. Do my best, we'll begin with a 1 or a 2. Been a hell of a ride, but I'm thinking it's time to grow.
Metronome.
Man, I'm up to something. Thank you.
Welcome back, Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Rodger Wheeler joining me here to get some NFL Week 9 picks up and going here before we get ready to get into the weekend. We were leaving off with some noon games still. Panthers and the Chiefs. The Panthers get Christian McCaffrey back, and fantasy owners such as yourself rejoice because it's been a while. But he gets back against a Chiefs defense, that's not necessarily a great matchup. There was some worry because Chris Jones yesterday was on the COVID-19 list because of contact tracing, but has since been removed, which is good news for Kansas City. The Panthers, though, coming in, they've looked a little stagnant these last couple of games. I think the offense got off to a decent roll with Teddy Bridgewater, who's been better than a lot of people expected with the Panthers, but they come in this one off a Chiefs team, which is, they barely had to show up against the Jets, and they still got that one pretty easily there. But what do you think here in Kansas City? Panthers coming in. I'll tell you right away. I'll let you choose first on your picks, but I think this could be potential for a lot of points scored.
Yeah, this one should be a shootout for sure. And you're right. I'm excited as a fantasy owner of Christian McCaffrey to have him right back where he belongs. But I will say, I'm just excited to have him back because the guy is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bittersweet thing watching him run against the Chiefs, which I think people are finding more success running than passing against the Chiefs defense. And they have been stagnant. And this may be just the spark they need to make this a ball game. And, I think it might come down to a final possession somewhere in the 34-31 range. But I don't know how you can go against Patrick Mahomes in a game like this. This is what he likes the most, is a shootout-type atmosphere.
Yeah, I think that's got the potential to be a shootout, no doubt. I'm also going Kansas City, as is Levi. Seahawks and Bills, a noon game here. Russell Wilson against Josh Allen. That's a pretty good quarterback matchup. It's a Seahawks team that the defense is super friendly. So it should be, I think, a good day for the Bills offensively. The problem is their offense has been down the last couple of weeks. They got off to a really high-flying start, but also have gotten a bit stagnant. Josh Allen needs more of a bounce-back type game. At 1 point a few weeks ago, we were talking about him in the MVP conversation, and he was facing his who he's going to face this week, who's still leading the MVP conversation. That's Russell Wilson. So another game I think I expect quite a few points in, but I'm going to ultimately give the nod to the Seahawks. They don't have Chris Carson again, which is a bummer. He's officially ruled out in this one, so that stinks for them again. But I think Russell Wilson outduels Josh Allen just barely.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with you that I think the Seahawks are going to win. There are 3 games. The Chiefs are definitely one of the ones that I want to see. The other 2 games that I already have ready to go on the TV for Sunday are the Seahawks and the Bills and the Saints and the Buccaneers. And this will be one of those games where the Buffalo Bills offense will get regenerated by the Seahawks defense. The Seahawks believe we can't score as points unless we have the ball in our possession. So hurry up and score so we can have it back. And I think that's exactly what you're going to see. You're going to see Josh Allen have a lot of success in this one, and then just give the ball back to him, because then Russell Wilson goes to work. And he's another one of those that I don't know how you go against him right now. He's having an MVP year, and it's going to be a great game to watch. I'm looking forward to every second of that game, but it's the Seahawks for sure.
Yeah, they've let Russ cook, and man, he has. It was a week before, a couple weeks ago, it was Tyler Lockett, and then last week it was DK Metcalf. Man, they've got some really talented players on that team, no doubt. Broncos-Falcons at noon. The Falcons, believe it or not, last time they played on Thursday night against the Panthers, they found a way to not blow a fourth-quarter lead. I think there were many people that were expecting them to find a way to blow that fourth-quarter lead, and they actually held on and won the game. And it showed that when their offense comes together and their defense doesn't let them down, they're actually not that bad of a football team, believe it or not. And I've been trying to tell people that for a while now. You get a healthy Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. I mean, the receivers are great. Todd Gurley's in the mix there at times. I think he's been a little better than expected at different portions this season. Matt Ryan's still Matt Ryan. The Broncos last week, they found a way to beat the Chargers because the Chargers keep finding ways to lose, and it's really unbelievable that they continue to do that. I'm going to take the Falcons at home against the Broncos. I think that was because last week we did see Drew Lock really looked bad until the fourth quarter when he started coming alive and making plays, but he can't do that against a Falcons team. I'm telling you right now, they're going to be too good offensively.
I think this Falcons team, I agree with you, they're a lot better than their 2-6 record indicates. The way they've lost some games at the end should be enough of a flag to let you know that, hey, we're not that bad. When we're healthy, we can beat just about anybody. I would put them up against most any team in the league if they're healthy. And now that they are all healthy, this team could turn it around in a tough division that they are with Tampa and with the Saints already in there as well, fighting. But I think this team can compete, and I don't think they'll have any trouble at all with the Broncos.
Yeah, I'm good with that too. Levi also going with the Falcons. Raiders and the Chargers, AFC West battle. Like I said just a minute ago, the Chargers found a way again. They were up 21 points on the Broncos, and they've done that time after time this year. The good news for them, I mean, Justin Herbert is phenomenal. I think he's going to be a star in this league before it's all said and done. And he goes up, by the way, in my Hot Take Hall of Fame because I said this summer over and over to get him in, he should be starting over Tyrod Taylor. People, no, what are you talking about? Tyrod Taylor's proven. Well, Justin Herbert, it didn't take long for him to show he's going to be an elite quarterback before it's all said and done. The Raiders have maybe surprised some people with a couple of wins they've picked up this year. Obviously, the Chiefs were one of them. I think this is a back-and-forth affair. But, man, and it might come back to bite me again. And would I be completely surprised if it does? No. But I'm going to go with the Chargers at home cautiously here. I'll say that.
Well, this is where we're going to differ. I'm going to have to go with the Raiders. This is probably the epitome of a who cares game to me. If I see a second of this game, it's too much. And so I'll just have to rely on the ticker to tell me what the score is of this one. But it's definitely going to be quarterback play. With Herbert and Carr going back and forth, which one of them is better? I'm going to give it to the experience and say that the Raiders find a way, as they seem to always do, to beat the Chargers.
Yeah, they do seem to do that. And Levi's with you. He agrees. He's also going the Raiders. I'm the only one over here alone by myself picking the Chargers, but that's okay. Dolphins, Cardinals. Cardinals are back in action after their bye week at home against Tua Tagovailoa. And the Dolphins, who Tua, by the way, it was a really just kind of a blah performance that he had in his opening week. He didn't have to do that much because the special teams and defense was so good, and the defense has been a fairly nice surprise for the Dolphins this season. But they come in against a fresh Cardinals team. Obviously, D-Hop, as we talked about, not happy about the talk of him not being the best receiver in the league. I think he goes back and tries to shut everybody up this weekend and goes crazy against the Dolphins. Even with this defense, it's still not good enough to stop Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, who are just so good. But first of all, before you make your pick, because I'm going with the Cardinals, obviously, but what'd you think about Tua's performance there in his first NFL action?
I didn't hear a word you said after you said Tua's last name because I was so impressed. That was amazing. How'd you do that?
That I rattled his name off like that?
You said it right. I'm so impressed.
Yeah, it's taking quite
I can't do that.
It's some practice in the mirror. You just go in the mirror and you say Tagovailoa over and over.
Wow, that's impressive, son.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Pat you on the back for that one. To answer your question, I don't know. I mean, what do you expect from this guy? I mean, he's supposed to be Tua, and what we've seen of him, it's just like asking, how do you feel about the first game, out of the hat for Kyler Murray. You kind of expected him to do what he's doing. So I don't know. I definitely didn't think, 3 or 4 weeks ago that this would be a game that you'd look at and go, I'm not really sure. That's a good matchup with the Dolphins and the Cardinals. But all of a sudden it is. But I don't know how you go against the Cardinals after their bye week.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing I'm taking into account as well, is they're going to be fresh. Definitely. Levi's also going with... No, Levi's going with the Dolphins. Oh, my goodness. He thinks Tua's going to get a win here. I think he's crazy with that pick, but that could be good for me, getting a leg up on him here. How about the massacre that's going to take place on Sunday? The Steelers and the Cowboys. They're actually going to... I don't know. I haven't seen a finalization on this. I'm going to have to check. Last I checked, they were looking at fourth-string quarterback Cooper Rush, who brings up a lot of bad memories around here because he was a Central Michigan quarterback in that crazy win against Oklahoma State those years ago. But I feel like you're just throwing a guy to the Lions here. This is a defense in the Steelers that I said yesterday reminds me of back when they had James Harrison and Troy Polamalu, Ryan Shazier, all those guys that were so dominant, so scrappy and tough. Man, the Steelers defense is crazy. This ain't going to be close.
No, I think every season when there's a team that's trying to go undefeated, the 1972 Dolphins get together, the Don Shula era, those guys get together, and every time that extends another week, they have their toast and all that stuff that goes with being undefeated. I think they're safe this week. I think they can have their toast already and know that, hey, Steelers are going to go 8-0, that it's not going to be ruined yet. The undefeated, this is not the time for us to get together and think that the Cowboys are going to defeat the Steelers and stop that from happening. I don't think the Steelers will go undefeated, but this is not the one to put any money on for sure.
Yeah, they're a really good team, and the Cowboys are a really bad team. Plain and simple, this one will not be close. Big Ben will go crazy. Saints and Bucks, this one is actually super interesting. You could actually have, believe it or not, with everything that's gone on with these two teams, of course they opened up the season. We get it on Sunday night, and you could actually have Saints and Bucks, Drew Brees versus Tom Brady, if Drew Brees plays, hopefully he does, and Michael Thomas versus Antonio Brown on the other side. There is a ton of interest in this ball game, but that is, Drew Brees is officially questionable along with Michael Thomas. I think if those two play, man, there's going to be a lot of fireworks in this game.
Yeah, the last research I did on it said both those guys were going to play. Mm-hmm. And I think they will, if no other reason, exactly what you're talking about. It's a spotlight game. It's a Sunday night game, and with the quarterbacks and what they've done already, and how they can, these two keep going back and forth over who's throwing the most touchdown passes, and they'll battle that out. That'll be a major item on the broadcast, I'm sure, all evening. But I agree that the main spotlight is Michael Thomas and Antonio Brown. It's going to be quite a battle to see which one of those two can come out on top, but I will never go against Michael Thomas if he's going to play in the game, and I think the Saints will come away with the victory.
Interesting. See, I think that if Michael Thomas plays, it's going to be back to the old ways, kind of like you're talking about, where the Saints start looking really dominant on offense. But the problem is, we've seen some regression from Drew Brees in that arm strength this year. If he's questionable, that certainly doesn't help things. And this Bucs defense, man, they have shocked everybody with how good they played. You're going to get, I think, I'll have to double check. I think Chris Godwin's going to be back, but you're going to have Mike Evans, and you're going to have Antonio Brown at the disposal of Tom Brady, who has started to also heat up in a very good way. Chris Godwin is officially questionable, so either way, though, there's going to be a lot of stars in this ball game, and the run game has actually come alive for the Bucs too. So I'm going with the Bucs. I think Tom Brady gets the best of the Saints, because also remember, when this season opener happened, it was Drew Brees taking care of business, and that was with Michael Thomas not even involved. But this is a completely different Bucs team here in this Week 9. So I'm going with the Bucs. Levi's going with the Bucs as well. On Monday,
I would say you're talking about Drew Brees' arm strength and the things that go with that. And Michael Thomas, that's his mid-range guy. Thomas is not your in route down the line, throw it 40, 50 yards. He's your 10, 12-yard guy that makes his plays after the catch, and I think there's going to be a lot of success there.
Well, the Saints need that. They have not had that guy, like you mentioned, because and it's become so well known for Michael Thomas. Everyone jokes that all he does is run slant routes, but he gets it done no matter what. So, yeah, I can't wait to see him. I hope he does come back. It's going to be a lot of fun. Patriots-Jets on Monday night. Snooze fest. I mean, this turned into... There was a lot of excitement when Cam became the quarterback for the Patriots, and it looked like maybe they were going to, be really tough to beat again, and oh my goodness, they're just so bad right now. And then the Jets, we don't even have to talk about them. This is like I mentioned a few weeks ago when Levi went crazy on me for even suggesting, could the Jets actually beat the Patriots the way that they're playing? Now when I look back on it here, I don't think they can. But my goodness, I've never been so close with the Patriots and the Jets before. This is just unbelievable how bad they are. Cam has disappointed for sure these last few games since coming off the COVID list. Julian Edelman is hurt, and he was the only decent receiver, and even he wasn't playing well this year. So I'm going to go the Patriots, but man, this is going to be a sloppy, low-scoring game.
Yeah, I think you have to go with the Patriots in this one, and like you said, sloppy is a good word for it. I'm just glad that network television premieres begin on Monday because I don't even plan on going to this one.
Yeah, if you can find something else to watch, you might watch it because this one is just, that's unbelievably bad. So we're all going the Patriots just barely. When we come back to round out the afternoon sports drive, we'll give you some quick fantasy advice. I've got 6 gambling picks that are guaranteed to make you some money. You heard it from me, to make you some money this weekend. Coming up next, we're going to round it out here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Welcome back, Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and my celebrity guest with the picks, Rodger Wheeler on the other line. And he knows a little bit about fantasy football, too. I mean, that's fair to say, right?
Well, you going to say I'm a 4-time champion? You want me to?
I left the door wide open, okay? That was for you.
Yeah, You put the ball on the tee and I hit it right out of the park.
Yes, you did. The 4-time fantasy champion. Just get it out there. We get it. Okay, nice. Well, thanks a lot. So yeah, you know what's going on in the fantasy world, and I think we got to look at the quarterbacks first here because we got some starts, we got some sits. I'm gonna go. I'll lead things off here. I like I said earlier, I think Big Ben. Especially in a week where some bye weeks, some quarterback issues. If he's your backup. You're happy playing him against the Cowboys. I would caution because I think at some point, it may be even the fourth quarter, they end up sitting him. But I think he's going to have a huge day with that group of receivers that are really talented over there in Pittsburgh. So definitely get Big Ben in the lineup.
I can't argue with that. I didn't put him down as one of my locks, the guys that I wanted there, and mainly because of the reason you're saying. I think it's possible in that game that he didn't see the field in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it really could be up to that point, no doubt. Who you got? Who's a lock quarterback for you?
Well, the 2 guys that I put out there that I thought were locks, we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, but I think Russell Wilson is definitely a lock in that game because it's going to be such a shootout. I think you'll see a lot of running the ball as well as 3 touchdown passes for Russell Wilson. But I think Lamar Jackson's a great one against the Colts, and I know you don't agree with that.
I don't.
But I think he's going to go off in that game because I think he's going to find a lot of yards. I'm going to say he's over 100 yards rushing in that game from the quarterback position.
You're crazy. I thought you were off the Lamar Jackson train too, but you're driving it. My goodness.
I don't want him as my fantasy quarterback, but if I had him, he wouldn't be on my bench.
Well, no. I mean, I didn't have him on my sit list, but I had him as a tough start against the Colts. So we'll go with that. Also, yeah, I know. It's true. I'm going to go with Justin Herbert against the Raiders. This Raiders defense has been tough against the long ball at times, but Justin Herbert, man, his connection with Keenan Allen and recently Mike Williams has been really good. So I like him against the Raiders here. I would say very, very cautiously. Very, very cautiously. If you are desperate for a quarterback, I'd be okay with Cam Newton against the Jets because their defense is so bad. But, man, it's going to be low scoring. Drew Brees is a tough draw against the Bucs, but I think you still go with him. And then Ryan Tannehill, I would not be starting. He's going to go on my sit list. Against the Chicago Bears. Running backs. I'm going back to the Steelers. James Conner should have a huge day against the Dallas Cowboys. Antonio Gibson, I think he's a solid start against the New York Giants if you need a running back. Hopefully he's not on your waiver wire list still, but if he is, go swoop him up right now. Dalvin Cook, as if I have to say this, my goodness, he went nuts. James Robinson is back off the bye week against Houston for the Jags, should be good. And Christian McCaffrey is back.
Yeah, you'd think you and I talked beforehand about this, and we didn't, but I threw out James Conner as well. Dalvin Cook as obvious. I said before, I think he'll do exactly what he did in last week's game. The one I threw out there that you didn't have is Justin Jackson. I think against the Raiders, he had a big week last week, and I don't see any reason why he'll slow down this week.
Yeah, I'm just cautious about the backfield with the Chargers. They used 3 guys, last week, but Justin Jackson did see the bulk, and I'm with you. I think he's maybe good for 20 touches, which he could turn into some big yards. My sits real quick. I'm not starting either Chiefs running back if I can help it. We just don't know who's going to get the carries right now. Derrick Henry's going to have a tough draw. You obviously start him, but I said tough one against Chicago. And then Gurley against the Broncos. It's been decent against the run. Wide receivers. Who do you have as a lock in your wide receiver category?
If you have any of the receivers for the Seattle Seahawks, I think you got to go with them. If you get Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, those guys are locks week in and week out, but I think especially this week. I also put down DeAndre Hopkins. We talked about him. You already know my love affair with DeAndre. And then I think Julio Jones, I think he's really locked in now with Matt Ryan, and I think he's going to continue to put up solid numbers week in and week out.
Yeah, those are absolutely your must starts. Sammy Watkins is questionable. If he does not play, I really like McCole Hardman again for Kansas City. He played really well last week and actually got the snaps over to Marcus Robinson, so he's somebody I would go with. For Kansas City so far, I think they're going to do a good job of taking away DJ Moore with the Panthers, so Robbie Anderson is my go-to there in terms of receivers. And I actually like Devontae Parker, believe it or not, against Arizona, because Miami might end up being in a chasing points situation here, and he can be the benefit of a late touchdown, even if it is Tua back there at quarterback. So there's your fantasy starts and sits for this week. Go out there and win this weekend. That's Rodger Wheeler that joined me here in the picks this week. Dad, I appreciate it as always, and we'll be in touch soon. And I just want you to know that starting this week, it's been a while, but I'm coming after you in fantasy, and I plan on dethroning you sometime this year, okay? Just letting you know.
You've said that for 4 years, so keep talking. You talk all you like. Let me know how mad I beat you in these picks by Sunday night, would you?
Yeah, I'll let you know. Year 5's the charm, okay? I'll say that.
Now, all right, I'll see if that happens.
All right, see you later. That's Rodger Wheeler. We appreciate him coming on, doing some picks with me. Real quick, I've got 6 gambling picks to get you into your weekend as well. See if you can make some money on the NFL. First, I'm going to take the Seahawks at -3 over the Bills. I think they cover that. I think it's a tight game. There's going to be a lot of points scored, but give me the cover, -3 with the Bills. My second one, the Steelers are 14.5-point favorites over the Cowboys. Yeah, that's going to be covered. The Cowboys don't know who they're going to have at quarterback, and that's a disaster situation for them. Steelers should cover. Cardinals are 4.5-point favorites over the Dolphins. Yes, I think they cover that one too. The total in the Chiefs-Panthers sitting at 52.5. Give me the over in that ball game. I like a lot of points scored in that one. Over 52.5 with the Chiefs and Panthers. The Ravens and the Colts, 2 pretty good defenses. The total's at 48.5. Give me the under. You rarely see me take unders anymore, but give me the under of 48.5 at the Ravens and the Colts. And the last one I'll leave you with, the Giants. They're +2.5 right now with the Washington football team. I think the Giants win outright in that ball game. There's 6 gambling picks, I should say, to get you going into your weekend. This has been the Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network with Patrick Wheeler. Coming up next is the high school preview show, and then don't forget later on, Perry Maroon football kicks off with myself and Jeff Lancaster tonight. We'll be on the air at 6:30 p.m. Until then, everybody have a great weekend.